All right, Jenny, I think the next thing we should probably figure out here is how did we know how much decking to order to deck this entire deck, right? I mean, it might have taken some math, don't you think? Or I thought you did. I thought you helped me. Okay, maybe not. All right, Mr. Allen and River Dog Jenny back for another episode of Math in the Wild. This time we are, once again, out here on the deck, but we're going to calculate how much decking I needed to order, right? We didn't just randomly pick that, right, Jenny? We had to calculate how much to order so we don't over-order or under-order. I guess Jenny's, she's already done with the math, man. All right, so we're going to go measure some dimensions and things like that, and then talk about how we calculated it. Jenny, we're going to do some measurements here for this one. So, I'm going to try and hook right there. How long? Do you remember how long this deck, or how long this deck is, Jenny? If I come over to here, we're right around that 14-foot mark, give or take. So let's call it 14 feet. All right. So that's how long this thing is, and it is about 20 feet wide. So 14 by 20 would be our dimensions here. All right, Jenny, you gonna help with the math here, or are you just gonna sit there and let me do all the work? Okay, I'll do the work. All right. So I got a diagram over here. It's 14 by 20 foot, and then I drew this part here. This is like where the dock, comes out a little bit there. But we'll just focus mainly on this rectangular part that's 14 by 20. All right, so what do we really need to know here? Well, we could calculate the area, which I've done over here. 14 times 20 is 280. So my area is equal to 280 feet squared. Perhaps that could be helpful. Another thing we might want to know is how about like our dimensions of a deck board? A deck board you can buy in various lengths from 8, 10, 12, whatever. Generally speaking, they're going to be about 5.5 inches wide. All right, so you got to account for 5.5 inches as they're being laid out. That's not a really good one, but here we go. So they'll be kind of something like that, and each one of these spaces is 5.5 inches. And we're going to get 16-foot length. Okay, that's the standard deck board. You just order a whole bunch of those oftentimes. And the nice thing about it is that because this is 20 feet wide, we'll have some nice combos of, a 16-foot deck board and then a 4-foot deck board. Okay, and then we can have a 4-foot deck board over here and a 16-foot deck board, and that makes up 20. And then I can get myself, how about an 8-foot and a 12-foot? That adds up to 20, right? And guess what? This 12-footer right there, when I cut that to 12 feet, what am I left with? A 4-footer. So they all end up working out really nicely in this way. How fantastic, right? Okay, you can see on this deck, you can see all those seams of where these boards had to be cut. And you can see there's a pattern to it, right? All righty. Jenny, thanks so much for helping. So back to this. How do I figure out how many boards to order? Well, what I'm going to calculate is, based on this 5.5 inches of width and the 14 feet going out, how many of these courses am I going to need? So let's figure it out. 14 feet, if I were to convert that to inches, would be 168 inches, right? So how about get some good units going here? We'll get 168 inches. Now, if each board's going to cover 5.5 inches, I'll just divide this by 5.5. Bada boom, bada bing. It's going to take about 30.5. We'll call it 31 courses of deck boards. All right, there we go. Okie dokie. I was looking into my camera as I was writing that. That gets kind of messy. Whatever. All right, so that's how many courses of decking I'm going to need, but remember, that's not how many 16-foot lengths I need. So now we got to do a bit more thinking about, okay, well, what does this actually mean? So when I planned this out, I started jotting down my courses like you see it here, and I waited till they repeated themselves. All right, I decided to do a fresh drawing here so we could clean up the work a little bit. Does that sound good to you, Jenny? All righty. So we're talking about courses of boards here. So I'm going to draw this guy here. This is my first row of deck boards. Let's say I decided to do a 4-foot and a 16-foot, right? And remember, these are all 16-foot deck boards that I'm working with. Okay? Well, that way I can order all the same. Now, when I cut 4 feet off of another 16-footer, what did that leave me with? That left me with 12. So what I'm going to do is strategically place that over here. And then what's left over for this chunk that I need? I'm going to need an 8-footer. Okay. 8 plus 12 gives me 20. 4 plus 16 gives me 20. Cool. Now, when I cut that 8-footer out of a 16-foot, what am I left with? I'm left with 8 feet. Now, what do I need to make up for that 8 feet? Well, I got to get a 12-footer. So that becomes a 12-foot board here. And now that I just cut out a 12-foot, what am I left with as my scrap from that 16-foot board? Well, 16 minus 12 is 4. And then I'm going to need a full 16-footer right here. Very, very cool. So now that whole pattern is going to start back over. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 courses. All right. And how many boards did I use? So that's the real question, right? 4 courses of boards. How many deck boards did that take? Well, here I've got 1 full guy. Then I've got another full one from the 4 and the 12. So that's 2. From the 8 and the 8, that's 3 deck boards. From the 12 and the 4, that's 4, and then 5. So 4 courses takes 5 boards. Ran out of room. Okay. Every 4 courses takes 5 boards. Well, how many courses did we say we needed again? 31 courses. Okay. So 31 courses of deck boards, and 4 of them takes 5 boards. How the heck am I going to figure this out? My goodness, could I perhaps set up a proportion? I think so. Let's do it. All right, so if 4 courses takes 5 boards, right, 31 courses would take X amount of boards. I could cross multiply this bad boy. So let's do 5 times 31. That's 155. So 4x is equal to 155. And then I'll divide this by 4 to solve for x. Whoop. So it's 38.75. So divide by 4, and that gives me x equals 38.75 boards. Now, like we talked about in the concrete problem, oftentimes we'll add a little bit extra. So why don't I add in, how about 10%? Okay, so that means I'll multiply by 1.1, so it takes the original 38.75 and adds in 10% to that. And that means I'm going to want to order 42.625 or 43 deck boards. Okay, so 43 boards. Cool. All right. That's how I did it. Okay. There was a little bit of figuring out what was going to be the best thing to do. A lot of people calculate these things a little differently. This is just my take on it. But I wanted to point out, I did do a little rounding along the way. I didn't necessarily go by #YoRow. My reason for that is because you're not going to have a half a row really here. I'm planning out a full row. So I wanted to calculate it with 31 full rows of deck boards. So I chose to round that one. There was a reason for that. It was not just carelessness. All right. Excellent. All right. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to Math in the Wild with Mr. Allen and the one and only River Dog Jenny. Right, Jenny? That was pretty fun. I think she's kind of pooped out, from math today. So we'll leave it at that. We're just out here enjoying the wonderful deck that we had to do a lot of math to figure out how to build. Have a wonderful day, guys. America, freedom, rock and roll, and Costco.